it's not joining a cable between a mouth of a teacher and a head of student, and you download something from your mouth into their head. Teaching is much more than that. Teaching is about developing potential. Teaching is instilling values into students, so on and so forth. I think in Thailand we are looking at teachers who can also serve as role models for their students, who can really influence and motivate their students. It is timely that I would say that Thailand has established a very prestigious award, a lifetime award for teachers, not for Thailand, but for countries in this region. The award is called Princess Mahachakri Award. It would commemorate the 60th birthday of Her Royal Highness Princess Mahachakri Sirinthorn, who has spent most of her life in working towards education for children, especially the marginalized children and marginalized people. This award would be for 10 ASEAN countries and Timor-Leste, and it's a biennial award. And we have communicated the nature of this award to senior officials of ASEAN and Timor-Leste and through embassies. The criteria for selecting teachers for this lifetime award is quite simple. We look for teachers who instill positive change in students and also inspire their fellow teachers. So it's quite the true criteria, very broad criteria. And we request ASEAN member countries and Timor-Leste just to develop their own selection criteria. The first award ceremony would be at the next World Teachers Day in Bangkok in October 2015. So I do hope that Thailand could welcome many of you back, not at the 2015 World Teachers Day, but also the award ceremony of the first Princess Mahachakri Award. So this award is a biennial award. So hopefully through this award mechanism, teachers in the 10 ASEAN countries and Timor-Leste could, I think, get in touch with one another more often. At the award ceremony, not only would see this award presentation, but we would organize workshops like this for the 11 teachers to meet at least their Thai teachers throughout Thailand, not just Bangkok. I think in conclusion, I very much appreciate the contributions from the Director of University of Bangkok, the specialists from Simo Innotech, and experts from our region. We all recognize that our children are our future, so it is therefore appropriate to do our utmost to see that our students received the best education possible. In this regard, crucial teachers are the key. So let us therefore now explore how we could assist our teachers so that they could maximize their professional potential to ensure a sustainable future. Let us share our experience together on occasions like this. I wish you every success in your deliberations, and now it gives me great pleasure to declare this conference open. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, His Excellency, for the insightful, informative, and inspiring speech for us. His Excellency Dr. Kritsanapong is our newly appointed Deputy Minister, and we are very happy and honored to have Your Excellency lead us and guide us with the new education direction. So may I invite Dr. Kritsanapong Kiratikorn and also Dr. Paitun Sinlarat, Dr. Paitun, to give the token of appreciation to His Excellency Dr. Kritsanapong, the Deputy Minister. Next, may I invite His Excellency to give the token or plaque of appreciation. This event will not be successful with our partners and the participant from the Southeast Asian or the ASEAN country, including Timor-Leste. So may I first invite the participant from Brunei Darussalam, Mr. Haji Matusi Haji Jais from Brunei, to receive the token or the plaque of appreciation from the Teacher Council. Next, may I invite Haji Jafar Ahmad to receive the token from the Brunei Darussalam as well. Next is from Cambodia, Mr. Lee Kiang. Next, Mr. Liang Sari from Cambodia. Next is Miss Rika Ragmita Suyatma from Indonesia. Next is Dr. Jumintono Suwardi Joyo Sumarto from Indonesia. Next is from Laos, Mrs. Waradun Amon Kitada. Next is also from Laos, Mr. Unkam Uwansawan. Next is from Malaysia, Dr. Ahmad Rakfi Shikasim. Next is Mr. Abdul Mutalib Osman from Malaysia. From Myanmar, Miss Tutu Tantin. Also from Myanmar, Miss Tin Tin Ka from Myanmar. Next is from the Philippines, Dr. Purita Bilbao. Next is also from the Philippines, Dr. Claudius Nivera. Next from Singapore, Associate Professor Lim Kam Ming. From Timor-Leste, Mr. Dio Lindo La Cruz. Mr. Dio Lindo La Cruz. Also from Timor-Leste, Mr. Abilio Araoso. From Vietnam, Miss Pham Thi Thanh Van. Also from Vietnam, Miss Yuen Thi Tuyet. Next is from Thailand, Dr. Direk Ponsima, the advisor of the Teacher Council of Education of Thailand. Next is from the Office of the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Education. The Deputy Minister of Education himself received the token. Next is the representative from the Office of the Education Council. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Kwang Jo Kim. Dr. Kwang Jo Kim, the Director of UNESCO Bangkok. Next, I would like to invite Dr. Withaya Jiradeshakun, the Director of the CMEO Secretariat. Also, the representative from the Thailand Education Dean Council. Next, from the University of Khon Kaen, or Khon Kaen University. Next is from Thaksin University. Next is from Ratchapat Ratchanakarin University. Next, from Ratchapat Chiang Mai University. Next, from Ratchapat Nakhon Sawan University. Next, from Burapha University. Next, from Ratchapat Suandusit University. And also from the College of Dramatic Arts in Bangkok. ตัวแทนจากวิทยาลัยนาฏศิลป์ค่ะ Thank you very much, His Excellency. So that concludes our opening ceremony this morning. In view of time, the organizer would like to inform you that there will be no coffee break outside the room. The snack has already been provided to you in the box. If some of you have not yet received it, the staff will be providing to you later. And if you'd like to use the restroom, there are the restroom for the gentlemen on the left and the ladies on the right. Please feel free to have a chance for that. While they're setting up the stage for our international conference, perhaps we can take a couple of minutes here to wait for them to set up. But please be informed that we are now broadcasting live to 5 university or the Teacher Education Institute all over Thailand. So it is very remarkable event as we speaking. The teachers in the north, which is Ratchapat Chiang Mai, also see you at the same time. If you want to say hi to any of them, just wave your hand if your colleagues waiting there. Also in the south, Thaksin University, Mahavittayalai Thaksin,นะคะ. In the east, also Khon Kaen University. In the west, Ratchapat Ratchanakarin University, and also in the central part is Ratchapat Nakhon Sawan, together with here. So we'll have more than 100,000 teachers all over Thailand to see this event at the same time. Okay, so before you leave the room, this is one of the important events that I would like to welcome you again and encourage you to not to miss this part, which is one of the best part of the international conference today. I'd like to first start the keynote address, which is the most important, and together with others as well for this event. It is the keynote address from UNESCO or from Dr. Gwangjo Kim. And this is a special one on the teacher education for all. Dr. Gwangjo Kim, I'd like to introduce you. Dr. Gwangjo Kim, he's not only the director of the UNESCO Bangkok office, he is also the former Deputy Minister of Education in Korea นะคะก่อนที่ท่านจะมาเป็นผู้อำนวยการองค์การยูเนสโกท่านก็เป็นรัฐมนตรีช่วยของกระทรวงศึกษาที่เกาหลีมาก่อนนะคะ His background is in College of Law and also from Harvard School of Education นะคะท่านจบทั้งทางด้านกฎหมายทางเกาหลีที่เกาหลีมหาวิทยาลัยที่เกาหลีแล้วก็ที่ Harvard ด้วยนะคะ But I know Dr. Kim since 2009 for almost 10 years already. Beside his busy schedule as the director of UNESCO Bangkok, he spent his time playing guitar, and also he's a great craftsmanship of kite, a very prestigious material indeed. So please, ladies and gentlemen, join me to welcome Dr. Gwangjo Kim, the director of UNESCO Bangkok.
Sawadika, good morning again. I'm here again to make a presentation. Thank you, Dr. Tinsley, for your nice introduction. Yes, so we've been brother and sister for almost 6 years by now, Dr. Tinsley, CMEO, and UNESCO. So I'm very pleased and honored to stand here again to present to you our most recent report on teacher education from UNESCO. Oops. So where is mine? Yeah, where is my PPT? Sorry. Okay, great. So, Dr. Tinsley, how much time do I have? Half an hour or 1 hour? Half an hour. She said half an hour, so I'll try my best. Okay, so teaching and learning, achieving quality for all. This is the title that I brought here today. So in speaking about teaching and learning quality for all, I'll begin by reporting to you about what we now know as global learning crisis, depicted by the most recent global monitoring report. And then I'll have a brief look at the case of Thailand, and then strategies and recommendations put together by the global monitoring report, and then the education agenda before us after 2015, where we stand, how teacher education is featured in this discourse. Then I will end my presentation with our program in UNESCO Bangkok. So, the first part of my story, global learning crisis. What is it all about? As I said, this year's, the most recent publication from Global Monitoring Report is entitled Teaching and Learning, Achieving Quality for All. As you may recall, this is the 6th goal of Education for All, or EFA, which began already 24 years ago here in Thailand, Jomtien, Thailand. EFA has 6 goals, and 6th of which is about quality. This is, people say, the most important goal, and yet we haven't done enough on this front. That's why this year's publication is focusing on this quality for all. So the message from this year's Global Monitoring Report can be summarized in 4 or 5 bullet points. First, by 2015, which is the target year of Education for All, which is just around the corner, many countries will not achieve the EFA goal, unfortunately. Secondly, there is the global learning crisis that is hitting the disadvantaged or the marginalized hardest or most. And quality education can only be achieved with the good quality teachers, which is the theme of today's conference. And because EFA cannot be attained by next year, global education goals after 2015 must track progress of the marginalized. And then education post-2015 goal must include specific targets to finance or support education. These are the key elements of this year's report. By the way, Global Monitoring Report, or GMR, although it is UNESCO publication, those who work on this report are working more or less very independently, meaning they bring the expertise from statisticians, educationists, etc. So it is very, I would say, neutral and objective report. That's why GMR report is cited so often. So first, let's look at the number of schools, children or adolescents out of school. It has declined over the years, but notice that the pace of decline somehow slowed down since 2008, when the global economy was hit by what we call crisis of some kind at global level. Asian countries are doing more or less better than countries in the rest of the world, and nonetheless, because of the economic downturn, the pace of slowdown has been kind of reduced. Notice that out of school adolescents, still there are quite a number of kids at adolescent level. This is the key challenge that we are facing now. In terms of EFA 6 goals, this chart looks at 5 of EFA 6 goals in terms of how many countries are there. As you can see, many countries, in terms of proportion of countries from around the world, many countries have not achieved EFA goals on all 5 fronts of EFA goals. Notice goal number 4, which is adult literacy. As much as 37% 38% of the countries are not going to achieve IFA goal by next year. So this is largely unfinished job. Not only many kids are out of school kids, those who are in schools, they are not learning enough. In a nutshell, this is what we call learning crisis. For example, of the 650 million primary school age children in the world, 130 million are in primary school but have not learned the basics, reading, writing and arithmetic. They haven't picked up enough skills in these very fundamental skill areas. And 120 million have not even completed 4-year school. So together, 38% of children are not learning the basics. Then we have to ask ourselves, so what it means that we put kids in schools if they do not learn even the basics? That's why we think teachers are so key to all these challenges. Another way of looking at it is the proportion of kids who spend at least 4 years in school and learn the basics. Notice that the case of South and West Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa is quite alarming. Unlike other regions of the world, in these two regions of the world, only a small fraction of kids have completed 4-year schools and learned or obtained basic skills. Well, compared to these regions, the rest of Asia, including Asia and the Pacific, ASEAN in particular, I would say doing quite well in relative sense. So when it comes to learning crisis, as I said earlier in my opening speech and just now, those who are marginalized in terms of wealth in particular, they hit the most, hardest. As you can see in the case of India and Pakistan, these kids from poorest quintile of income distribution, they learn the least. They complete the least number of schooling. So 1/4 of those aged 15 to 24 in poor countries are unable to read a single sentence. Can you imagine, after spending 4 years, 5 years, even more years in school, they still do not understand a single sentence? This is almost like a joke. So where are the teachers? The next question is, where are the teachers? Educators. Now, we as educators, we must ask ourselves this very uncomfortable, uneasy fact. I'm not talking about ASEAN countries, but in general, in all of the places. So we say, well, we do not have sufficient resources. But it turns out that 10% of global spending or investment in education is not well spent. So we can easily talk about the level of spending, but at the same time, the way we spend money may be more important, because by making our resources more effective, we can save up to US $129 billion. At the same time, the donors are no longer generous. I'm sorry to say this, but it turns out that, again, because of the economic downturn or economic crisis, since 2008, it was peaked at 2009, but since then, the so-called education aid has been declining. So I cannot offer, or even the report cannot offer any suggestion, but they do have some suggestion when it comes to teacher education. But before that, let's have a quick look at where Thailand stands in terms of investment. As you can see, among countries in Asia Pacific, Thailand spent a lot of money in education. This is good news. Except for Timor-Leste and Solomon Island, Thailand is spent, in terms of spending, is among the highest country. So among selected countries, including ASEAN, some ASEAN countries, you can see Thailand stands way above the regional or sub-regional average. 7%, 6% of GDP. I think this is as of 2002, but according to the most recent data. This is very encouraging. Another way of... Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you. Another way of spending in education is to look at the public education spending as a percentage of total annual government budget. As you can see, again, Thailand is one of the highest country. Actually, the highest in terms of percentage, followed by Korea, Nepal, Vietnam, Malaysia, etc. Then how does this spending translate into learning outcome? I would like to give you a caveat. One cannot make a direct linkage between spending and learning outcome. But this may be a quick way of looking at how education in Thailand as a system is performing vis-a-vis its investment. Well, it's not very encouraging. I'm not going to explain. I checked this with His Excellency Deputy Minister, and she said it's okay for me to present the data because this is something already known. I'm sure that this is not a surprise to you. This is, by the way, 2009. The most recent, sorry. I'm missing a slide here. Well, I show that according to 2012 PISA results, a slight improvement over 2-3 years' time. Anyway, so the message seems to be clear. Again, this is from the Ministry of Education. The 12th grade O-NET, according to the national test, the test score seems to be declining on subjects like science, national language, Thai, English, etc., while spending in the more or less same period is increasing. I'm not going to make any inference or any direct linkage between two variables, but one can get an idea where education stands. Of course, the reading method is not the only learning outcome. It should not be that way. Learning has many more dimensions. It should include creativity, it should include interpersonal skills, and many other dimensions of learning. But because these other dimensions are difficult to monitor, the international community as well as national entities have looked at on this measure of learning outcome. So we need to keep that in mind when we speak about the quality of learning outcome. Are you all getting my message clear? Is it clear to you? If not, please raise your hand. I can stop and ask questions. So other challenges in Thailand, we understand many teachers will leave soon. About half the present teaching force will be retired in just 2 decades' time. So there has to be a kind of a succession plan. I understand the Ministry of Education is already working on that. And teachers to the marginalized kids, to rural areas. This is a GMR put together recommendations. So first of this is recruitment. As you can see, worldwide, we have a great teacher shortage, especially in sub-Saharan area. So policymakers must attract the best candidates to teaching, which to many is quite obvious. So it recommends that at minimum, these teachers need to have complete at least secondary education with a good grades. This is very important. If countries cannot afford post-secondary education qualification, at least the secondary graduate should have completed with a good achievement. And there should be a good balance of male and to female. You know, the feminization of teaching profession is an issue in many countries, perhaps in all of the countries in the world. This is a matter of extent. Again, when it comes to recruitment, policymakers need to bear this in mind. And also having diverse range of background, I think this is very important to address to the diverse needs of learners more than anything else. Second is training. In one out of 3 countries of UNESCO member states, less than 3/4 of teachers are trained to national standards. It's quite alarming. So policymakers must provide a good quality pre- and in-service training. So the bullet points should be self-explanatory again. But one thing I would like to note is teachers must be equipped to meet the needs of those from disadvantaged backgrounds, meaning people from poor background in terms of wealth, and also speaking minority language, living in rural area, and so on and so forth, for us to attain education for all girls. This is a very, very important part of the recommendation. Third part of the recommendation is about allocation. Deployment of teachers. In my previous job in the Republic of Korea, I was once in charge of teacher education, teacher policy as Director General. One of the issues was how to make good teachers, reputed teachers, to be able to work in rural settings. We used many incentives for good teachers to move to a rural area, station there for at least several years to deliver good instruction on the one hand and to inspire his or her peers. So again, this is not an easy job. Unless you have a very well functioning incentives, it may be difficult. So urban bias is one thing, and ethnic language and the gender in terms of subjects. These are the considerations that we need to make when it comes to deploying or allocating teachers. So I talked about incentives. The last recommendation is about retainment of best teachers. So more than anything else, the teacher's salary. Well, in some countries, they do not openly speak about this for good reasons. But I think it's time for us to visit and revisit this again. For example, how much teachers earn vis-a-vis their peers in other professions at the entry point, 10 years later, 20 years later. I think this is very, very important. I haven't included in my slides, but if you look at so-called high-performing countries, when it comes to international tests like PISA and TIMSS, like countries like Singapore, my country, Korea, Finland, etc., you will note that the teachers are much well paid compared to per capita GDP at the entry level, starting level, more or less the same. But 10 years later, they get 1.5 times, even 2-3 times higher. Of course, money is not about the status, but we are living in a very materialized world, so money does count. And if those in the room who can influence the policy or take decision, please do look at this. And there's a trade-off. But from my experience in previous job, I think it's very, very critical in terms of retaining good teachers in the system. Of course, recruiting the best and brightest in the first place, of course, important. At the same time, it may be necessary to come up measures that to address so-called teachers' misconduct. For example, what we call moonlighting, teaching the same kids after schools for fees. Again, in my view, this is related to teacher remuneration issue. So again, we need to look at from a more holistic perspective, how best we can incentivize teaching profession so that we can recruit the best and brightest in the first place and let them stay on, let them be motivated throughout their profession so that they can deliver good pedagogy. Okay, these are selfish, so I'm going to skip that. So all in all, again, policymakers must address these 4 dimensions of teacher policy. And these recommendations, as you can see, there's nothing new. These are the things that requires attention, commitment, and determination in my personal view, based on, again, my experience, because there are always trade-off in choosing different policy options. Your Excellency Deputy Minister, this is a message for you, for Thailand. You may address this issue with the newly appointed minister and other cabinet members. I'm talking about this based on my own experience. For example, you choose to spend more on teacher salary at the expense of something else, but make these teachers to work harder. Okay, so how teacher education is, I realize I have only 5 minutes left. So the key is that the teacher issue has now become the key aspect of what we call post-2015 education agenda at the global, regional, and national level. That's the message. So I'm going to skip all the slides. The Muscat Agreement is basically consensus among education leaders from around the world. As, for example, in the Muscat statement, as I spoke in my opening remark, target number 6, I'm going to read it. By 2030, which is the target year for next International Development Goal, all learners are taught by qualified, professionally trained, motivated, and well-supported teachers. So this is echoed by education leaders in Asia, a meeting called APREC, which is the meeting of education ministers and leaders in Asia Pacific. We met in Bangkok in August and ended with what we call Bangkok Statement. Bangkok Statement is, in a nutshell, endorsing the Muscat Agreement or global consensus on the one hand, also voicing the concerns from Asia Pacific. As I will show you, quality and teachers. Teachers are central to quality learning. This is once again confirmed by education leaders in Asia Pacific. Interestingly, in the Asia Pacific education leaders, ministers said they will spend 6% of GDP and 20% of expenditure for education. This was very much inspired by the host country, Thailand. As I showed you, Thailand already exceeded the benchmark kind of. So other countries will follow suit. But in my humble opinion, this has to be followed with a quality learning outcome. Otherwise, it will be difficult to justify in the long run. So then you would ask, what do you do in UNESCO? 4 things. First of all, to help our countries, we work on what we call competence-based teacher education reform. Basically, it has 3 subjects. We believe teachers have, first and foremost, have the good knowledge on the subject they deliver. So subject knowledge and abilities, values, and attitudes. In my view, this is about understanding of the learners, in a nutshell. Good knowledge about subject, understanding about learners, and then good pedagogy using technology in one way. Dr. Tinsley is an expert in this area. She would agree. So we have 3 components, and we are now piloting this idea with several countries and regions, including Nepal, Uzbekistan, and Philippines. Inotech, Professor Ethel, you are engaged in this. Yes. So we, depending on how it goes, we may scale up to include other countries. And the professional development, innovative pedagogy, we are working with the countries, our member states, to help in this area. And the school leadership, in particular, try to accommodate or embrace this global education initiative, including education for sustainable development and global citizenship education, human rights-based education, and so on and so forth. Sorry. Last but not least, this is a rather new approach adopted by us, UNESCO. Already, although it has been years since we came up with what we call normative instrument, things that I mentioned in our opening remark, two things. ILO UNESCO recommendation concerning state of teachers. In a nutshell, this recommendation are asking governments to pay due attention to teachers' working condition, salary, and status. And member states ask UNESCO Secretariat, meaning UNESCO, Bangkok UNESCO headquarters in Paris, to monitor the application of these two important instruments. And now I think it's the highest time for us to revisit this issue, because we are at the crossroads of defining new education goal, and again, with a strong consensus on the importance of teacher education. So, in so doing, we will organize some meetings this year, one in China to debate about this with the education researchers, and then we have a paid conference in Bangkok here in Thailand. So this is my presentation to you all. And thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. Should I stand here? Comments?
Yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Kim, for the very informative keynote address. And your presentation confirms the theme of the World Teachers Day this year, that it said, invest in the future, invest in the teachers นะคะถ้าจะลงทุนในอนาคตให้ลงทุนที่คุณครูนะคะนั่นคือธีมของ World Teachers Day. Thank you very much. Please give a round of applause for Dr. Kim again. Okay. So we have heard from the big picture of the global level, which is UNESCO. Now I would like to move to the next session, which is the plenary sessions. And the plenary sessions, we will narrow down the perspective of the global into regional level นะคะเราได้ฟังมุมมองของระดับโลกซึ่งทางยูเนสโกทำแล้วเดี๋ยวเราจะมาฟังมุมมองของภูมิภาคนะคะ The perspective of the regional level, we will hear from a representative from the Southeast Asian Ministers of Education. We will hear two sessions or two speakers this morning. The first, we will start with Dr. Ethel Agnes Pascual Valenzuela. She is a senior lecturer or senior specialist from CMEO Innotech. CMEO Innotech is one of our CMEO regional centers in Southeast Asia. CMEO International Organization, as Dr. Wittiya mentioned earlier this morning, that we have 20 centers all over Southeast Asia, and the headquarters of CMEO is in Bangkok. That's where I'm working at the moment. And Dr. Ethel, her background, not only a senior specialist, her range is from basic education to higher education. Yes. And she also is the person behind the scene of the education research reform on K-12 in the Philippines. Her expertise is in the assessment and also in the recognition of academic framework qualification in ASEAN for teacher as well. She has done a great research and report on teacher competency, and she will also talk about how CMEO contribute to develop a teacher competency in Southeast Asia. So not only all those experts, Dr. Ethel is also a good friend of mine. She is very dedicated to her work, to the point that there were one time, if you may, Ethel, we were in the conference, and after the conference, everybody would like to go for shopping, but Ethel would like to commit to her report and not go to shopping and write the report. So that is how committed Dr. Ethel is. So welcome, join me to welcome Dr. Ethel Agnes Pascual Valenzuela.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tinsiri, my dear Deputy Director of CMES and my good friend from Thailand. Sawadee ka. Good morning. Happy World Teachers Day! Can you greet your seatmate Happy Teachers Day? Okay, I think we forgot to greet each other. We're all teachers. Allow me to first congratulate our Deputy Minister, Dr. Krisamapong Kiritanpan. Congratulations for inspiring all of us today. Also, our dear Teacher Education Council President, Dr. Python. Thank you for organizing this very successful event. Our dear Director of UNESCO Bangkok for sharing all the updates on teacher education, education for all, and quality learning. My dear Director from CMEO, Dr. Witaya, for leading us to CMEO in the 21st century, what can be expected from us as a regional organization, and to the participating universities who are actually documenting and doing their work, distance, transnational maybe, and utilizing MOOCs for the students of the world in Thailand. And to all of you gathered here today, you're very lucky you are here. In 2010, as an educational policy researcher, I have some questions in my mind that time. I was thinking, who is teaching our kids? Who is actually teaching children of the 21st century? What competencies or skills do they have? Because we leave our kids and our children to them. Is there any standards of teaching in Southeast Asia? Is there one? So I drafted a proposal to my boss, and I said, I wanted to do a research on teaching competency standards. Actually, it's a book now. The first one, I did a meta-analysis of all the existing researches on teaching competency standards, but I could not find many in Southeast Asia. So I said it is better to call on experts from different parts of Southeast Asia. Let's have a look of this journey in identifying the teaching competency standards. I'll be sharing with you first the context of CMEO, the teaching standards, Guru 21 or teachers of the 21st century, and how do we move forward with all of the developments brought to us by UNESCO. CMEO is a regional intergovernmental organization, and it was born in 1965. Our main objective is to promote education, science, and culture in Southeast Asian region. And the members, we have Brunei Darussalam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos PDR, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Timor-Leste, and Vietnam. This is the world we are living in, 11 member countries of Southeast Asia. In terms of educational system, luckily, the Philippines was able to adjust to the regional standards of having an international standard of at least 12 years of basic education. So I'm showing to you the education landscape with most countries having international standards of 12 to 13 years of basic education. And the school year, well, you can see here that we are all very concerned and dedicated to education because we have more than the number of days as compared to other Western countries in terms of our days of schooling. So minimum of around 190, or Myanmar has 172 so far, but the others have over 200. In terms of medium of instruction in our region, you can see that